This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, good morning, everyone. It is 9 a.m. on November 17th, and feels like fall is definitely here with winter around the corner. I think the high today is going to be less than 50, which is great. I think we're all ready to be through fall and into winter, and as things change this time of year, it's also a great time as real estate slows down to start thinking about your business for next year and start putting some plans together. We're going to talk a little bit about that with the meeting today, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can get started on reviewing everything here. So I'm going to start with this one, and I'll start with slideshow from the beginning. So one of the things we've talked about a lot is what has been happening with the real estate market. And nationally, it's always really good for us to look at trends. So here are the trends for ShowingTime's monthly index. ShowingTime, of course, is a program which is actually being considered right now with Flex. It's a way of organizing showings electronically rather than calling the listing agent. But anyway, ShowingTimes is around the country, and they keep records of showings that have been happening. And so this index shows what's been going on with showings across the country since January of 2020. And you can see this is a normal market, January of 2020. Then we had COVID hit, and you can see what happened with showings. They dropped off March and April. And then in May, they started picking up. But now what we're looking at is September of 2020 compared with now September of 2021. And you can see in comparison to September of 2020, showings are down. We had massive showings that started January, February, March during COVID, when the vaccinations happened. And this is kind of what triggered this whole year of being the most amazing real estate market I think that we've ever seen since you know, the COVID pandemic led to this housing boom. And now showings are starting to drop off seasonally. That's normal. But now, in comparison to what September of 2020 was, we are below that. We have maintained a higher level before, but now we're actually at a point in which we're starting to see, coming out of COVID, that showings are dropping off, more normal real estate trends. So what does that actually mean? Again, you can see how that compares there. So ShowingTime index over the last 5 Septembers, however, yes, we're off 2020, but look at 2019, 2018, and 2017, normal real estate markets. We're still way over what a normal real estate market is. So it feels slower. Compared with last year, it's slower, but we're still way over a normal real estate market. So look at that and just take that into consideration when people start asking you what's going on with the real estate market. You can say, well, this is what's happening. So sales, national standard average in September were 2.7% below sales in September 2020. But excluding last September, which was distorted by the delayed selling season, which COVID pushed everything back to later in the year, sales standard were the strongest since 2005. So here, we've had the strongest September nationwide since 2005 if you take away last September. So it feels slow. We've been working at such a frantic pace in real estate sales, but think about normal trends versus that COVID pandemic, what's happened. So we're starting to see headlines. If you look at business networks and read the headlines, they are back to starting to terrify people as they'll talk about housing tanking again, or you know, that we're into a crisis mode and everything. So if you look at some of these things, being able to counter it when people ask you, tell me about these terrible things I'm hearing about. For instance, here's one in which we talk about foreclosures. You look at the headline, foreclosures are shooting up. Is it a repeat of the early 2000s housing crisis? Is it a repeat? Foreclosures are shooting up. Is it a repeat? That's a horrible thing to say. And look, this is in Realtor.com, which should be a website that actually really gets what's going on and should be encouraging rather than kind of producing a headline that's there to scare people. If you think about it, foreclosures are going up. Is it a repeat of the early 2000s housing crisis? No. Foreclosure starts are up 49% over last year. Remember, we had the moratorium on foreclosures. So that's lifted. And so yes, foreclosures are up over last year, 49%, because these were delayed foreclosures. But compared with August of 2019, normal real estate market, we had 28,000 foreclosures in August of 2019. Foreclosures do happen. It's unfortunate for those who are dealing with foreclosures, but that's a normal real estate market to have foreclosures. So yes, we're up 49% over last year, but compared with 2019, we are so below it. So these headlines that people come up with, I always think sometimes that this is the news, they're trying to get people to click on and read them and use their website or to read that article to use it, but you have to take it all in context and understand that when these headlines happen, well, yeah, compared to what are you actually comparing? Are you comparing against last year or are you comparing against a normal market? So take that into consideration when you see things like this. Here's another one. Mortgage originations will drop 33% in 2020 as interest rates rise, according to the industry forecast. Mortgage origination. This is from CNBC. So that's the big headline. Originations are dropped. That means housing market is crashing. No, it's not. Look at the key points. Refinance originations will drop 62% in 2022, which makes sense because interest rates are going up. Refinances happen with interest rates drop. When people have a higher interest rate and all of a sudden interest rates have dropped a 0.5%, a full percent, people refinance, so they save money. However, again in the small print, mortgage originations for the purpose of buying a home are forecast to rise 9% to a record of 1.73 trillion in 2022. So mortgage originations are going up, even though interest rates are going up, so refinances are dropping. So take those headlines and then read the fine print and understand that news organizations are somewhat sensational. They produce information that's going to get people to read their article or to subscribe to them. But understand that you can take data anyway and manipulate it. So yes, mortgages are expected to drop 33% because people are not refinancing. So here's another question, and think about this. This is a survey that was done from the University of Michigan, and it said, if they asked consumers, do you think now is a good time to buy a house? February of 2020, 70% did. September of 2020, 65%. But now September of 2021, only 32% do. And why is that? Is this because people are concerned about the headlines? They think prices are too high, interest rates going up? What do you think people have that perception? What is the perception they now have that they think it's not as good a time to buy a house as it was in the past? So taking that into consideration, let's look at what the 2020 housing market forecast actually is. So right now, we forecast mortgage rates to average 3.3% in 2022, which, though slightly higher than 2020 and 21, by historical standards remains extremely low and supportive of mortgage demand and affordability. This is from the chief economist at Fannie Mae. So interest rates are going to go up a little bit. So looking at mortgage rates from Freddie Mac over the 30-year fixed rate, going back to January of 2018, we were around 4%. It went up to close to 5%. And then it's dropped with a few spikes here and there to last year, in which we were really down around 2.75%. It's gone up a bit, down again, back up again, about over 3%. And this is the projection from Freddie Mac as to what they think is going to happen in Q4, 3.2%, Q1 of 2022 at 3.4%, Q2 of 2022, 3.5%, and then maybe up to 3.6%, Q3 of 2022. Again, historically amazing interest rates. And think back here in 2018, 2019, these were great real estate times in which interest rates were just under 5%. We're not even projected to go up to 4% again. So yes, rates are going up slightly, but historically super low. And I can remember when I bought my first house here in Bend, I think I paid 8% interest rate. That was a great rate for that point in time. My sister once had an interest rate, I think around 15, 16%. So historically, these are great rates. However, creeping up means for some people, for everybody, homes are going to be a little more expensive if they're financing them, just because there's a difference between a 3.6 interest rate and a 3% interest rate. It means affordability is a slightly less, but again, historically, it's still really, really good. So what's happening for home price forecasts in 2022? So here's the major players. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Mortgage Bankers Association, Zelman, NAR, all these. These are the projection of what they have. Fannie Mae thinks homes are going to go up 7.4% in 2022. If you take all of these indicators together and average them, they're expecting a 5.1% on an average. So home growth of 5% in 2022 is still slightly above a normal market, which is more like 3 to 4%. So buying next year, is it really a bad time to buy if you buy early and expect your home to go up 5% between the beginning of the year and the end of the year? Not really. So home sales forecast to increase this year and perform well again in 2022. So here's what the indicators believe is going to happen the rest of 2021. So they're expecting us to have Fannie Mae thinks we're going to have 6.7 million home sales this year, everywhere from that to the Mortgage Bankers Association, which thinks we're going to have 6.9. For 2022, Fannie Mae thinks slightly less. Freddie Mac, NAR about the same as 2021, but look at the Mortgage Bankers Association. They think it's going to be up to 7.5 million homes in 2022. These are great numbers. It means lots and lots of people will be selling homes and buying homes. That's the expectation. When you consider what's happened in 2020, we had 6.5 million homes sold in 2020, which was, you know, an amazing year after we take off the COVID dip, when COVID first hit and everything kind of tanked for a couple of months and then really zoomed after that. So compared with 2020, which was, we all understand, an amazing year for home sales, 2021 better, and the expectation is 2022 will be better yet. If we take what these people say and these organizations say as being good indicators. So we shall see. So according to the Mortgage Bankers Association chief economist, 2022 should be another strong year for the housing market. So when people start asking you, well, isn't everything tanking? Aren't we back to a housing crisis again? No, that's not the expectation. Brittany has a question there. Is how is Zillow going to be impacting the housing market? Well, we all know Zillow is now a mortgage brokerage. They're trying to figure this all out, I think, right now. I think we all read the headlines about how Zillow got out of the iBuying game after losing, what, $300 million and buying homes at their Zestimate and then not being able to flip them. I think they're trying to figure things out themselves. I know there's been a lot of changes as how they run their Zillow recognized brokers, people who buy the Zillow leads. I know there's a lot of people who are getting out of that. They've always been very expensive leads, I understand, and historically they've actually been good, but now they're not any longer. I mean, if you read Inman et al., there's a great article there that a real estate agent wrote and when she is cutting her ties with Zillow, she used to buy a lot of Zillow leads and decided that it's not worth it any longer. So if you haven't read that article, it's worth reading. So I don't know, Brittany, really how Zillow will be impacting us. They're actually a brokerage who's in part of our Flex. I haven't seen any sort of Zillow houses listed, but they do have a physical location. At least I think it's in the Southern Medford area, and so they are part of our local MLS through that tie-in with Southern Oregon. But I haven't seen Zillow houses listed, and maybe you guys have. I haven't yet, so I don't know what they're going to be like moving forward, but it's something to think about. Anyway, so thinking about housing, we look about houses not only from the economic perspective of how much value your home can be worth over time. When people invest in a home, every time that they make a mortgage payment, they're investing in their own future by building equity. We all know housing is the #1 way that homeowners across the country build wealth and build for their own future by owning a home versus renting and paying someone else's mortgage. There's also an emotional connection with housing. And this has actually really come forward because of COVID. When we had the stay-at-home orders and everyone was home and working from home and kids were home and learning from home, the sense of home became something totally different than just a place where we live, have our meals, sleep, and then go to work. It became work, it became school, it became everything. And the emotional connection with home really made a big play for how we consider the next property we're going to purchase and how our buyers consider that too. We all knew there was a mass exodus from the urban areas because people said, if I got to work from home, if I got to do that, I'd rather have my home be where I like the lifestyle, where I like the environment, which triggered a lot of people leaving the urban areas to more rural areas or more suburbs. In our case, we had so many people leave Portland, leave the Bay Area. As long as they have a good internet connection and their job said, well, you got to work from home, let's make our home here. And so the emotional connection with home became something entirely different than what we thought about in the past. So home ownership is regarded as causing an improvement in the quality of life of a typical family. It is the most common method for such a family to build wealth that could be used for retirement or other needs, including helping the next generation. Such wealth creation therefore provides a major social as well as economic benefit. So what do people think about their homes? So in 2021, Unison State of the American Homeowner, 64% of American homeowners said living through a pandemic has made their home more important to them than ever. 83% of homeowners say their home has kept them safe during the COVID-19 pandemic. And 91% of homeowners say they feel secure, stable, or successful owning a home. That's big. That's an emotional connection. And I know that when we are dealing with clients, I know recently we've had within our brokerage some clients who are sellers leave their home that they've lived in for 50 years. They needed to move into a new life choice, a new change in life. And emotionally, it's hard to leave a home that you've lived in all that period of time. But for them, they felt wonderful that the people who are purchasing their home have that same emotional connection to it that they did. So the emotion is really, really important. Now, that leads to something else, and I will be reporting on this as well once I hear how the NAR conference that they just completed turned out. I'm going to have a meeting about that later this week. The NAR conferences, there was some new policy adjustment changes, and I need to get those officially. But we all also know that the state of Oregon has now passed a law that says love letters are banned effective January. NAR has also taken that policy that we have to do away with love letters. So the way we deal with our buyers and our sellers when it comes to fair housing issues and recognizing that those letters we used to write in which we talked about how this family moving into this home will envision seeing their Christmas tree in that corner and, raising their kids there and all that. that stuff is gone effective January 1st. I know a lot of us have already transitioned out of it. It's changing how the emotional connection that we always have used for buyers to secure a home, especially in a multiple offer situation. But dealing with that is something we will have to work through. In the meantime, understand that for a lot of people across the country, people look upon their home as a place of security and stability. And it is still that huge emotional connection that people feel to properties that they purchase that helps us as agents in representing them to find out what is most important to them, to key in on the properties that work for them that way. So last year, staying at home became a necessity, and that caused many homeowners to have renewed gratitude for the roof over their head. That's so true. I know when COVID first hit, Brad and I talked about, and we've talked about this for quite some time, that our house is a little bit bigger than what we need. I mean, we've got a house that Brad built when we had 3 kids at home, and it's 3,500 feet. We don't need that much space. We really don't. But it has been our home for 20 years, and we're comfortable there. And when we had stay-at-home orders and we were thinking about, well, where would we go? I mean, we would like to have something a little smaller, but it's home for us, and we feel good about it. And you have that gratitude for your roof over your head. And again, that's important for all Americans. So homeowners who feel emotionally attached to their home. Before the pandemic, 58% felt emotionally attached to the home. Now it's 70%. So that tells you how much people love their home. It's important having that emotional attachment. Buying a home is not just a financial decision, it's also a lifestyle decision. And of course, as we've known for decades, that people move to Bend for the lifestyle. When I first moved to Bend in the 1980s, everyone called Bend poverty with a view, because it was not an expensive place to live. And people who lived here because this is where they wanted to live. They could make more money working in a large city, but here's where they live. So poverty with a view. Of course, that's not the case any longer. Bend is expensive to live. Housing is expensive in relationship to what it used to be, but it's still the lifestyle that a lot of people like. And so it is not just a financial decision, it's a lifestyle decision about where you live. So think about what your goals are for 2022. As we move into the latter half of November and into December, we start thinking about the holidays, start thinking about family activity, and our businesses usually always drop off. So thinking about where you want to be in 2022. Do you want to get more listings in 2022? Make more investments in your future. And there's, according to Jimmy Mackin, CEO of Curator, here's his ideas. 4 areas in which to invest. Invest in your clients and referral base. So think about that. Are you regularly touching your past clients and your referral base? Because people, as we've talked about repeatedly, people work with people who they like and people who they remember. Often, a seller, when it gets time for them to sell, will list with the last person they talked to who's a realtor. So if you're not people talking regularly with your clients and referral base, remember, your clients like you. They really enjoyed working with you in the past, and they would love to refer more business to you. So you've got to maintain that connection with them. That data, that statistics I've used many, many times, and it's from NAR, that at closing, between 80 and 90% of buyers were really happy with the real estate agent. And then 5 years later, when it came time for them to resell that property, only 20% of them used that same agent. They really liked you at closing. Why did they use you 5 years later? It's because they forgot who you were if you don't maintain a connection with them. So invest in your client's referral base. Remember, we have those newsletters we produce that you can send out regularly to your referral base. We also have the client retention program that touches them on holidays. There's all kinds of different things that we can do. We can help you put together postcard connections with your clients, regularly let them know that you're still in business. Some people just send out little note cards regularly. You can just do little note cards a couple of times a week to clients. Just pick 2 clients from the past, let them know you're still in business. Handwritten notes, picking up the phone and calling them. So investing in your clients' referral base. Investing in video, content, advertising, and social. If you don't have a Instagram page, a Facebook page, letting people know that you're still out there. Video is still one of those things that I need to get better at, and it's been on my bucket list for quite some time. I need to get better at that. But sending out regular videos, it's easy to do. You can use your cell phone, videotape yourself going into an open house. Say, hey, here I am today, going into this open house. Hope to see you there. And you hit, you're sending it live on your Instagram, your Facebook page. People who follow you will see it, and then hopefully show up there. But at least you're touching them and letting them know you're still working. Invest in creating a world-class experience. And I know you guys are awesome brokers, making sure that you give people a great real estate experience all the way from step 1, meeting them to final closing, and doing a top professional job working with your clients. That's a given. You guys do a great job with that. And then 2, invest time in becoming a market expert. How many times, even on my last vacation, when you meet people, you ask them what they do, and they ask, you tell them what you do, and you say, well, I'm a realtor. They always ask you, well, tell me about the market. So when you tell them about the market, your local market and the national market, you become the expert. And that way people come to you with questions concerning the market, and hopefully in the future you become a referral partner with that person who you might have met who's from Virginia, or the people that you've met in anything that you do. I mean, I've had people in the, I've overheard conversations while standing in a grocery line in which people are talking about housing, and every once in a while, if I feel comfortable about it, I'll interject with that. Well, actually, this is really what's happening, and then you become part of their conversation, and then it's a great opportunity for you to hand out your business card and say, well, this is really what's going on. So knowing what's happening in the market is so, so important, not only nationally, but of course, locally. So with that in mind, let us go to our next thing, which is our local market. So here's where we are as a company. I always compare month to month. So I'm looking at October of 2020 versus October of 2021. So listings down slightly, about the same, but even though we were down 3 listings compared with 2020, the volume of the listings are higher. Prices are up, and as a result, we do more business sometimes with less. Our pendings are about the same. 46 in 2020, 45 in 2021, but look at the volume. We had 22 million in 2020 versus 35 million in 2021. We are selling more expensive property, without a doubt. Now, closed 54 versus 67. This is dealing with the fact that in 2020, the end of 2020, as we've looked at all those charts and graphs, we know that in 2020, sales that should have happened in March and April were pushed back later in the year. So we were closing more the end of 2020. In 2021, this is a more normal market to have fewer closings at that point in time in October. And the volume, we had 38 million in 2020, almost 33 million in 2021. But our year-to-date figures are really interesting. So this is, again, just taking each sale separately, not doubling anything, which we double-ended on it. We had 460 year-to-date sales in 2021 versus 447 in 2020, at 241 million in 2020 and 293 in 2021. I'll show you how that ranks on MLS in just a second here. So here's again our market summary for Bend Residential October of 2021. Active listings, you can see this is from MLS, and the Bend residential does drop off normal. Bend also includes Sun River in MLS, whereas my figures, when I pull out Bend, it's separate. I discard Sun River, totally different market. Anyway, active listings dropped off, sold listings dropped off, new listings dropped off quite a bit. Listing prices, you can see that the median list price and the sold median sales price are kind of going more, you know, they're kind of maintaining themselves. Active median list price, though, is still creeping upward a little bit. Absorption rate, you can see that's starting to drop off a little bit. It had gone up to 1.6 months of supply, dropped off to about 1.4. Sold to list ratio, little bit below 100% in October. Now, again, this includes Sun River. So I'm going to pull out some data in just a second to show you where we are in Bend itself. Days in market, they're starting to drop down again a little bit. And then price volume, active list volume, about 500 million. And then new list volume and sold list volume down a bit. So this is from my blog that I always write, but I look at Bend proper, so that's zip code 97701, 02, and 03. It does not include 97707, the Sun River area. And just single family residential on less than an acre. So October 2021 versus 2020. Active listings, we are down 56% over 2020. New listings, we are down 30% over 2020. New pendings, we're up 46%. Solds, we're down 16%. Sold volume, about 3%. Sales price compared with October 2020, up 15%, and median sales price, almost 16%. So we have definitely, prices keep on going up. Amount of inventory is less. Months of supply, we were at 2.6 months in 2020. We're down to 1 month supply. It's not the 2 weeks that we were seeing earlier in the year. 1 month is better than 2 weeks, obviously, but again, we still have a lot of demand, limited supply, and that's still pushing prices upward. So, where's Bend Premier? And you can see we are solidly in 5th position at almost 315 million in sales. This is based upon the fact we've double-ended a number of our sales. So I know my own personal data shows 293, I think it was 293 million. This is because we've double-ended some things. Average, and again, if you think about this, 5th position, we have 50 brokers. And we're dealing with other offices that have 2 to 3 times the number of brokers. You guys are amazing how much you have done. You think about it, compared with offices that have 2, 3 times, the fact that you are solidly in 5th position is just amazing. I'm just always amazed at what you guys produce. It's just truly, it's a testimony to all the professional work that you do, how good you are at your job, and how, just you guys are top. So with that in mind, I would like to know, does anyone have questions? And does anyone has or wants you want to share? If so, just feel free to unmute your mic and just share with everybody here. Things that you're seeing in the market. And have you had people ask you about what's going on with the market?
Hi, Linnea.
Hi, Jane.
Good morning, everybody. You always, I often get, oh, well, questions about the market from people that tend to read the Zillow headlines.
Yes.
It's trying to acknowledge their belief and then counteract what's actuality is sometimes a little difficult because they've already read it, they believe it, like politics.
Yes.
Do you have any, or does anybody have any suggestions? You know, when somebody said, oh, well, it's just unaffordable, then, you know, people are just moving here and it's all that money. And I know that locals can't afford to live here, but anything that anybody can think of, and I know I'm not being very specific, on just how to answer people that have a completely wonky viewpoint on our today's market.
Anyone have something that they can share with Jane? I know I have some ideas. Anyone else have something they want to interject here? Well, my thoughts here, Jane, when people say that, a lot of it comes down to, well, if you look at prices, don't look at prices as much as what can you afford on a monthly basis. Have you, if you're in the market to purchase, have you gotten pre-approved from a lender? And has a lender told you what you actually can afford to pay on a monthly basis, knowing that housing prices are going up and that historically they've been an amazing investment for people to build wealth. And in lieu of renting, I'd much rather own and be investing back in myself. Finding out how much someone can afford if they're in the market by connecting with a good mortgage broker so that they can now say, based upon this, based upon your income and all that, this is the kind of home you can afford. Now that you know that, then you can find a house that would work for them. It may not be Bend, but it could be outlying areas. And if in lieu of a house, what about a condominium or a townhome or other type of housing? Again, owning real estate is one of those things that makes such a difference in someone's life. There's, again, not only the financial benefit, but also, as we talked about, the lifestyle benefits and the emotional benefits connected to being a homeowner. So when people say that it's out of whack, well, a lot of it's dependent upon, well, out of whack compared to what? Also, if people find out from the mortgage lender that they can only afford up to $400,000, there are homes that we see hit the market under $400,000 in Bend. But there's also Redmond, and there's also La Pine, and there's outlying areas. I can't tell you how much business we've been doing this year in Madras and Prineville. These are great communities, and they're growing because they are, if you talk about affordability, they have homes and nice homes under $400,000. So does everyone have to be in Bend? That's a question too. Does that help a little bit, Jane?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I hope that works. But again, I think the start is to find out how much you can actually afford. This thing stuck in my head a long time ago. My parents, believe it or not, were in their late 40s when they bought their first home. And my dad was not with my mom when she had to make the final decisions. And the house that they were looking at was $75,000. And my mom said, oh, we can't afford that. It's only we can only afford up to $50,000. And the real estate agent they were working with was saying, don't think about the cost of the house, think about what the monthly payment would be. And based upon the monthly payment, they figured out, well, they could afford the $75,000 house. Of course, think about that now, $75,000. And it was a great house too. It was, and I think it was probably 3,000 feet, 4-bedroom, family room, living room. You know, I mean, it had a lot for it. And of course, the value of that went up tremendously over the 15 years they owned it. So I think other things as well. Any other questions or comments?
I have a comment.
Yeah.
I have a comment going outside of the immediate area. I had a first-time home buyer straight out of college, and she wanted new construction under $350, I believe it was. And so we went to Madras and found a cute little home, but it was a builder I've never heard of. The listing agent, sorry, someone's at the door. The listing agent backed out, broke up his agreement in the midstream. The builder and the listing agent had an argument. So long story short, when it was time for repairs, he used COVID, the builder, to say there's these items I can't get to till after closing, but promised in writing he would do them. Well, he never did them. So I would just say buyer beware. If you're going to Madras or Culver or outside of the area and you've never heard of the builder, just be careful, because
Yeah.
this man, we're still 8 months later trying to get him to do the repairs.
Oh, wow. You know, one of those things there, Diane, is obviously working with builders is to check with the CCB and to find out if there have been any claims against them. And if your client ends up not getting any sort of response back from that builder, they can always put a claim in with
Yeah, that's
the
what we're doing.
CCB.
Yeah. So we had a
Yeah.
clean record and we did put in a claim. But what was the odd thing? Oh, here's an odd thing. Both him and his realtor, the listing agent, said the street out front would be paved by summer, by date certain, and it never got paved. I told her to do her own due diligence on that. She didn't have time. Later found out from the city that they were never paving that road. So those are
Okay.
big items for the listing agent and the builder
Yeah.
to drop the ball on. So
That
I'm
might
just
be,
saying, be careful in Culver.
that might also be an E&O claim against the realtor, you
Yeah,
know, and the builder's insurance too. I mean, if they're making false statements, I mean, I would hate to ever advise a client to go the legal route that way, but it may be worth their time to consult with an attorney, because that would actually have hurt the value of their property. You know, if they purchase with the idea we're going to have a paved road in front, and now it's never going to happen, that's not good. Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments or haves or wants?
I have a question, Linnea.
Yeah, Cinda.
You know that client I've been working the listing I've been closing. We had a rejection on a buyer's repair request. My sellers, we gave them a seller's repair list, and we both buyers and sellers have signed closing docs yesterday morning by 11. They signed a seller's repair list, which is not, they're minor details, but a seller's repair list after they sign closing docs. Are we as sellers required to do those repairs?
Yeah, because it's still, you haven't closed the deal yet. They've signed their closing docs, but you haven't actually closed.
Okay. So my sellers have all the little things they said they would.
Yeah, and they are obligated to fulfill the terms of the contract. And if, you know, often we will, when we have things like that happen near the very end of a contract, we have an understanding that sometimes these repairs will not be made until after closing. But that's, if you're representing a buyer in that scenario, you want to make sure that you have a contract signed by the seller in which they take responsibility to make sure that those repairs are done, even though it happens after closing. It's harder to enforce when you've already closed, but I haven't heard of sellers who have not honored that, except for what Diane just said. You know, I mean, a builder who did not come forward on getting those repairs done the way they were supposed to. But most contracts do. But yes, they are obligated to fulfill the terms of the contract.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments, or haves or wants? Okay, if no one has anything else, I'm going to be getting back with you guys after I hear about what happened with the NAR convention. A couple of things that I've heard I've read about and I was checking on is dealing with, first of all, that a policy was passed in which the buyer's agent commission is going to be posted on all websites. So in other words, the consumer, the buyers out there will see what their agent is going to be paid on every real estate transaction. I know this was part of the DOJ settlement with NAR, and the DOJ pulled back on those agreed to things, but it looks like NAR is going to be implementing it anyway. So I don't know how that's going to what the timing is of that. That's one of the things I heard. And another thing I heard, and I'm really curious to see how this is going to work, is that the listing agent on all IDX feeds, not only their brokerage, but the agent itself is going to have to be on all IDX feeds. So in other words, on your personal website in which you have an IDX feed from MLS, we already have the name of the brokerage of the listing that's there, but also now the agent's name, and I believe contact information will have to be there as well. I don't know enough detail about that yet, so I will find that out and get back with you. So that's something to think about. Which seems odd to me because this is your website. Yes, I understand we need to post the information on the listing brokerage, but the idea is on your website. You want people to use your website and to call you about that listing, not call the listing agent. So that's kind of an odd scenario. I'm curious how that will shake up and how it's actually going to be implemented. But any other comments or questions on anything? Okay, if not, I'm here at the office, and if you need anything, feel free to give me a call. I'm still doing Emily's job for her. She will be back on Friday, and everyone got Brittany's note that she's going to be out this afternoon. So anything you need Brittany to do or me to do, feel free to obviously reach out to me, and anything you would normally ask Emily to do, reach out to me as well. So I'm going to be doing all things today. Talk to you guys soon. Thanks so much.